Hey, Epiphany, nice to see you today. Happy Tuesday, feeding the 5,000. Gospel of John, abundance of the kingdom of God. That's what we're talking about. I hope you're finding abundance in your life. I hope you're finding it in surprising ways. I know in this time of shutdown, COVID-19, as we anticipate getting back and getting the economy rolling again and people working again and people out doing the things they did, eating out and shopping and playing sports, God willing, coming to church. We'll be giving up something when we do that, right? Because I think there's probably something that you've stumbled upon, at least I have, I know in my own life, of abundance in this time of quiet quarantine. I know it's been super hard for some people. I mean, it's been super lonely for people. I know for people that have young kids, it's been incredibly trying. And y'all have been in my prayers. I know it's hard, and I've talked to a lot of you, both suffering from loneliness and suffering from having family members you can't reach out to, and just suffering through having a bunch of little kids quarantined in a house. It's tough. And I'm wondering, for you, even you, who have marked this time with particular suffering, but also for all of you that are watching this video, what points of abundance have you found? What discoveries have you made that have enhanced your life in a particular way? If you have any that just jump right out to mind, send me an email. Love to hear about them. Let's get back into this. We are in the feeding of the 5,000. Jesus is just down the road a couple of miles from Capernaum. He's up on a mountain. He's sitting with his disciples. It's near Passover. It's a time of celebration. People have followed him out here, and he feels obligated to help them, to feed them. And he turns to his disciples and says, how are we going to feed these folks? And Philip, remember Philip, right? Philip from the very beginning, stalwart, thoughtful, industrious guy. Philip says to Jesus, 6 months' wages couldn't give these folks just a little bit. We're right there, verse 5, verse 6 of the 6th chapter of John. 6 months' wages. One of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother. I think that's interesting that's called out. Andrew, Simon Peter's brother. In the Gospel of John, there is a great deal of attention placed on Peter and Peter's relationship with Jesus and who he is. And it really holds him up as one of the pillars, if not the pillar disciple in relationship with Jesus. So even though Andrew had introduced Jesus to Peter, it's Andrew who's now Peter's brother, as opposed to Peter being Andrew's brother, if you know what I mean. That's interesting. It says something about the intentionality of what the author of the Gospel of John is trying to do. He's trying to explain the role of Peter as leader in the early church. So, and witnessed that leadership. Anyway, so we have Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, and he says, there is a boy here who has 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. But what is that among so many people? And Jesus says, make them sit down. Now this is interesting. This is a reflection back to the Old Testament, where Moses had the Israelites divided up into groups to better sort of manage and distribute care for them. With Moses and then people under him and people under him, and they had these sort of small community groups. Church has done that ever since, right? It's a great way to work, to gather small groups together. Jesus has them set out there. So now when he does this, it causes the people who are there in their minds to think even more clearly that Jesus is like Moses. Like that Moses is the guy. They call him the prophet. So whenever you hear in the Gospel of John Jesus being referred to as a prophet, they're referring to him as the new Moses. And he fed his people in the wilderness, manna, quail, water. You remember those stories? And now Jesus has his folks out there, 5,000 of them in the wilderness, maybe the same number of people that were following Moses into the desert out of Egypt. I don't know what that number was exactly, but they were divided up into tribes. right, into people. And those tribes were divided up into leaders. And now Jesus is doing the same thing. The people have followed him out into the wilderness. And the Passover is coming. God passing over the people of Israel to save them from destruction. Passover is near. Jesus is going to feed them. They don't have any food. Andrew says there's a boy with 2 fish and 5 loaves, barley loaves. And Jesus says, tell him to sit down, just like Moses. Tell him to sit down. Gather around, gang. We're going to take care of you. We'll leave it there for today. I love this story. But I want you to think a little bit about the groups you're involved with. Are you involved with a church group? Are you involved with groups that help guide and manage your life? If you'd like to be, and you aren't, at least in relationship to Epiphany, do let me know. Send me an email, and we'll make sure to get you connected to the best of our ability. Because these groups are how we communicate personally and incarnationally. And they really matter, right? To have a small group of people over time that you get to know. I have one. I've been meeting with them since 2000. 6 brothers of mine. They live all over the country. We meet online. We have for years, once a month. And then we retreat together once a year. And to have people that know you really well, it makes a difference. Because you know you're loved. And you know they love you because of who God made you to be. And I love you. And I miss you. And I pray for you. Peace upon your soul.